Yeah. So good evening to all of you. Today we'll be having one webinar on the topic of draft ICMAI Sustainability Standard ISS1 on general requirements for disclosure of sustainability related information. And today's speaker is CMA Dr. S.K. Gupta. We heartily welcome sir for
Thank
today's
you.
webinar. Before we start formally to introduce sir, we start with our auspicious institute's anthem.
Yes, please.
Just to introduce CMA Dr. S.K. Gupta, who is a postgraduate in commerce, who is a gold medalist, FCS, FCMA, PhD in corporate governance, with over 42 years of corporate experience in leadership positions with various public and private sector organizations in the domains of finance, costing, internal audit, legal, and company secretarial functions. He is presently MDA of ICMA Registered Values Organization, CEO of ICMAI Social Auditors Organization, and also our MD of Arbitrators Institutes organizations. So, with this small introduction, I request sir, who has been instrumental in doing this draft ICMAI standards on sustainability. Over to you,
Thank
sir.
you. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this webinar on the draft sustainability standard dealing with general requirements for disclosure of sustainability related information developed by Sustainability Standards Board of the Institute of Cost Accountants of India. At the outset, I profusely thank the chairman of Sustainability Standards Board and also other team members of SSB to invite me and provide me an opportunity of interacting with you today on this very, very important concept and topic of sustainability standards that the Institute has come out with, the draft of which has already been released in the public domain, which deals with general requirements for disclosure of sustainability related information. All of you would tend to agree with me that the world is changing, and the world is changing very, very significantly and rapidly. There are changes taking place in almost every aspect, every dimension of our individual life, as well as how the businesses function in the marketplace. It's a beautiful world today, which is highly vulnerable, very, very volatile, hugely uncertain, very complex, very ambiguous, and there is always that fear of uncertainty lurking at the back of our mind to never really know what might happen in the next quarter, 6 months, 1 year down the line. This is the kind of hyper competitive, hugely complex and uncertain business world in which we are today operating the world over, including in India. In such business and economic environment, we have large number of companies which are solid brands of yesteryears, still continuing in the marketplace because they have been able to adapt their business model, their processes in line with the changing times. But at the same time, we also know that there are a lot of solid brands of yesteryears which have fallen by the wayside, which have not been able to adapt to the changing times, and thus they are no longer existing in the marketplace. Besides the so-called gold-plated companies, we also have today in the market large number of startups which are mushrooming all across the world, including in India. And these startup business ecosystem models have some very, very disruptive business models. World's largest travel car company does not own a single car of its own. Look at the business model, Uber. World's largest travel lodging company does not own a single hotel property of its own. Airbnb, Oyo kind of model, and the world's largest retailer, Amazon, does not own a single brick and mortar store.
Can you
These
share
are
your PPT, sir? Your PPT is not visible. Yeah.
not visible. Let me share it again. It's showing from my side, but let me check. Is it appearing now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It is
Thank
coming.
you. Thank you. So I'm on this slide right now. Second slide. Yeah. Thank you. So these are very, very disruptive business models which some of the startup companies have adopted, which were unheard of till about a few decades back. But these are the realities of the corporate world in 21st century. When you evaluate performance of some of the businesses in the marketplace today, you find that many businesses have profitless turnover. They have a great top line, but end of the day, there is no profit. Many businesses have cashless profit. They have profit as per profit and loss account, but then there's no cash, there's no liquidity. Profitless turnover, cashless profit, but some of these companies have very, very high, skyrocketing, soaring valuations. And then it is important to find out why stakeholders are giving high valuation to some of the companies in a marketplace as compared to others. Maybe sometime in spite of bleeding financials, financial statements not reflecting good results, but still the companies carry high valuations. And the answer is because of the focus of the companies and because of the focus of their business model and strategy on sustainability, the companies in a marketplace today are enjoying higher valuations. They are fancied by the investors. Investors would like to put their money and investment in those companies which are focused on the aspect and dimension of sustainability in a marketplace today. We all understand that our world faces number of global challenges. Climate change is one huge challenge that the world faces. Many parts of the Greenland, which used to have very thick layer of ice, is now getting melted. And because of that, the entire biodiversity ecosystem is getting disrupted. And that's leading to increase in the levels of seawater, leading to flooding of some areas across the world. And many parts of the world also are facing droughts. And there is huge problem also arising on account of large quantity of carbon emissions happening across the world because of commercialization and industrialization happening in all regions, all geographies. All the countries, including all businesses, are looking at transitioning to net zero, where they could possibly achieve zero carbon emission. And they're looking at transitioning from a linear economy to a circular economy. The world as a whole faces huge inequality. The GDPs have gone up across the world, including in India, but the number of people still living below the poverty line hasn't really come down in significant proportion. The haves and have-nots, there is a large gap, and that is what is known as income inequality. That is why in India, now we are focusing on inclusive development during the Amrit Kal. That is next 25 years, culminating with India's 100 years of political independence in 2047. We want to build Viksit Bharat, but that is proposed to be built on the model and concept of inclusive development. There is imperative need today for balancing of economic needs with societal needs. The whole lot of stakeholders, investors, suppliers, vendors, government, society, employees, are now increasingly demanded that companies should not only be good stewards of financial capital, but also should take due care of natural and social capital. And for that, they must have necessary architecture of governance in place to ensure sustainability of their business as well as sustainability of this planet on which all of us are living. So what exactly is sustainability? We are going to talk about sustainability standards. I want to share with you broad context, the background, and the perspective of what sustainability is all about and why it has become the focus point of discussion in all board meetings the world over. What is being done at the ground level, how the actions of the companies are getting reported by way of the regulatory architecture and framework that all companies have set up, including India, and then coming down to the focus point of sustainability standards. How do we ensure that what is being reported by the companies is factual, is realistic, is specific? That's where the importance of sustainability standards comes into picture. So let us try and understand, starting from the scratch and the basics, as to what sustainability is all about. Sustainability means meeting the needs of the present generation without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. As someone has rightly said, there are enough adequate resources available on this planet. But the only rider is that you should not be greedy. All your needs can be fulfilled, for sure, but all your greeds possibly cannot be fulfilled. If you do that, and if that happens, you will deny the future generation the right to live on a healthy planet. And that's where you have a responsibility. We all living in the present generation have a responsibility of protecting the planet and handing it over to the next generation in the same shape and form in which we inherited it from our forefathers. That's because We have only one planet. There is no planet B. People are talking about setting up habitat and settlements on Moon and Mars. I don't know when will that happen, whether that will ever happen or not, but we just have one planet to live today, and that's where we got to take care of in order to ensure that even the future generation will have a sustainable planet, a good enough planet to be able to live on. So when we talk about sustainability, it basically implies that we should use the resources which are available today in such a manner that we are able to meet our needs as well as leave something, leave something for a future generation also. And therefore, the crux of the matter lies in balancing economic, environmental, and social factors to ensure long-term viability of any business and long-term viability of the mankind as a whole. You got to balance the economic, environmental, and social factors. Sustainability is all about a win-win situation. When we talk about sustainability, we are talking about doing good for the planet, doing good for the people, and of course, doing good for the business in terms of earning a reasonable ROI, a decent enough ROI, so as to provide sufficient balance between the three factors, the so-called triple bottom line, that is people, planet, and profits. Sustainable development requires that a company must contribute not only to the economic growth, not only to building up GDP of the country, but must also become a partner in social progress, building a better quality of life for the people in the country, building a better society, and also for promoting environmental sustainability in terms of maintaining the reasonably decent temperature on this earth, reasonable level of clean, unpolluted air, water. That's where environmental sustainability is required to be maintained by the companies, besides economic growth and social progress. Corporate sustainability is a business approach which creates long-term stakeholders' value. In fact, the metrics for measurement of corporate performance have undergone a change. Today, the stakeholders do not only focus on and look at profit or profitability, they also check out performance of the company in terms of social and environmental dimensions. And in one single word, they're looking at ability of the company to be able to create value, to be able to preserve that value, and to be able to enhance that value going forward on a sustainable basis. And sustainability is one thing which ensures long-term value creation for the business and for the stakeholders. Sustainability is all about understanding and managing economic, social, and environmental impacts of the company's activity. You run a business, you own a factory or a manufacturing facility. How is that going to actually impact the environment, the society, the people, and of course, in terms of the economic ROI, in terms of generation of return on investment on the capital provided by the stakeholders? So there is an emerging imperative for the businesses today. Businesses today are expected to take on more responsibility than simply generating profit. That's because the businesses conducted in any part of the world has huge external impact on the environment, impact on the society, impact on the economy, and that's where a balance is required to be carried out between the triple P concept, and that's where the responsibility of the businesses today, it extends beyond the normal responsibility of earning a profit or ROI. So one way that the companies can demonstrate their commitment towards sustainability is to have a sustainability strategy. Strategy is basically a vision as to where you are as a business and where you want to go. That's all about strategy. What is required in today's requirement is that the companies must start focusing and incorporating sustainability dimensions in their overall business strategy. Sustainability has to become the DNA of the corporate business strategy in every dimension, every aspect, every decision that the company takes. It has to consider the dimensions of sustainability in addition to the economic and the financial dimensions. So profit is going to remain important for every business, because unless the business is able to earn a reasonable ROI, it cannot expect to survive in the market for a long time. But the only difference that has now come is that the path to profit now passes through social value, environmental stewardship to create stakeholders' value. No doubt, profit is going to remain an important factor in every business, but how the profit is run, how the profit is made, how the business is run is now going to be also considering the aspect of social value, building up social capital, improving the quality of life of the people, and also the environmental stewardship in terms of maintaining a good quality environment required for the mankind living on this particular planet. And there are no shortcuts. It's going to be a tough call. It's going to be quite a rough path that the companies will have to tread on. But that's what it is. In terms of doing business in 21st century, the focus has to ultimately shift towards sustainability. So because the world is changing in almost every dimension, both at the individual personal level as well as at the business level, where sustainability is emerging as the key value proposition, the kind of information that stakeholders are wanting to have is also changing. Traditionally, we know that all corporates are required to prepare an annual report at the end of each financial year, and which is required to be sent to all the stakeholders, especially the shareholders of the company. And this annual report contains details of the financial statements, the director's report, the auditor's report, the secretarial auditor's report, management discussion and analysis, and things like that. But predominantly, the information shared with the shareholders through the annual report of the company is financial in nature. It provides, yes, adequate information, reasonably adequate information for the financial service providers or the providers of financial capital. But today's stakeholders not only are looking at information relating to utilization of financial capital, but they would also like to know what is that the company is doing with regard to other types of capitals. When we talk about sustainability reporting, it's not only reporting of the financial performance of the company. It looks at reporting on non-financial performance of the company as well, in terms of utilization of different types of capital besides financial capital, which includes intellectual capital, social capital, environmental capital, relational capital, manufactured capital. And it's when you look at these 5, 6 different types of capital and try to provide reasonable return on each of these different capital dimensions, that's where truly your business would become sustainable and you would truly be following the sustainability principles. So the point that I want to focus on is that the structure and architecture of annual reports that we already have in place in all countries, including India, is not sufficing the information requirements of stakeholders in 21st century. They want to get some more information with regard to non-financial operation, non-financial aspects of the company's functioning. And that's where there is a requirement that the corporate reporting architecture must change. The world is changing. The requirements of information by the various stakeholders is also changing. So there is need for the corporate reporting architecture to also change. And that's where sustainability reporting becomes a key change being brought about by the current wave of sustainability being and becoming the focus and center point of the board agenda discussions. So what we are looking at, and the whole world is moving towards that dimension, is that of sustainability reporting, which has now become a kind of a corporate imperative. You can't run away from this. You have to follow. You have to prepare a sustainability report because there is an ever-increasing focus on sustainability the world over. Sustainability reporting is becoming mandatory across various jurisdictions in the world. Even in India, we have BRSR, Business Responsibility and Sustainability Reporting guidelines and mandatory requirement of SEBI and stock exchanges, where top 1,000 companies by market cap are required to provide information to stock exchanges on the BRSR, which has 9 principles, approximately 170 parameters on which information is sought to be provided to stock exchanges, and that's basically Indian version or the Indian context of sustainability reporting, which is currently operating. SEBI has laid down a clear roadmap. The number of companies who are going to be mandated to provide sustainability reporting or BRSR is going to increase year on year. As of now, only top 1,000 companies are required to follow BRSR, but the number of companies is going to increase year by year as per the roadmap already laid out, made public by SEBI. Sustainability reporting is all about talking about actions, challenges, opportunities of the businesses with regard to social aspects, with regard to environmental dimensions, and also with regard to governance architecture that the company is following. And because of the nature of the dimensions, we're talking about social aspects, we're talking about environmental aspects. Not all information is going to be quantitative in nature. You will have to be dealing with a lot of information which is non-financial, which is non-quantitative in nature. And that's where the real challenge of sustainability reporting lies. How do we deal with, how do we manage, how do we report non-financial dimensions of the business in terms of impact on society and impact on environment? So, sustainability reporting provides to the stakeholders information about the linkage between organization's strategy, its governance architecture put in place to ensure that the strategy is rightly implemented, and the resultant financial performance of the company on one side. And this has to be linked. The linkage has to be established of the strategy, governance, and financial performance with the social, environmental, and economic performance of the company. That is what sustainability reporting is all about. On one side, check out and look at the strategy, the governance, and the financial performance of the company and link it up with its impact on social, environmental, and the economic dimension of running of a business or operation of a business. That's what sustainability reporting is all about. So what are the benefits of sustainability reporting? Those companies which are coming out with sustainability reporting frameworks, they are coming out with sustainability reports, they enjoy competitive advantage over other companies which are as of now lower down on the journey towards sustainability. It allows the companies, enables the companies to proactively comply with various regulatory requirements relating to sustainability reporting. And because the company starts focusing on sustainability, and the key idea behind sustainable practices is to cut down on the resource utilization, improve the efficiency of resources, it automatically leads to cost savings for the company. That's a huge advantage that a company enjoys when it starts building up its model and strategy on the path of sustainability. Those companies which are high up on sustainability ranking, they enjoy higher valuations as compared to other companies. It leads to building a trust amongst the various stakeholders. When a company follows sustainable pursuits and when a company follows sustainable strategy, the vendors, the employees, the other stakeholders, they have more trust on the company and the company official. And that's a great advantage in this hyper super competitive business and economic environment. And then it also reduces the risk of penalties due to non-compliance or some other kind of liability that may arise on the company, because the company is proactively taking adequate steps to comply with all regulations relating to sustainability. These kind of risks are minimized, and that's where the company enjoys an advantage over which are not high up on the sustainability curve as of now. So the companies have started coming out with sustainability reports. Even in India, as I just told you, companies have started preparing and submitting to stock exchanges the BRSR, Business Responsibility and Sustainability Reporting Report. But the huge challenge as of now is it only a tick box exercise? How do you ensure that the information that the companies are providing in BRSR report is relevant, is reliable, is transparent? How do you ensure that? And that's where there is an important concept of sustainability standard frameworks. Just as in order to make sure that accounting is consistent, reliable, transparent, we follow the accounting standards. Similarly, when a company prepares its sustainability report, it must also follow some standards so that the credibility of the report goes up and the chances of misleading information getting reported through the sustainability report also becomes very, very less or it gets minimized. So across the world, there are various frameworks and architectures of sustainability standards which are currently in use. Some of them, as I mentioned here on my slide, bullet number 2, we have GRI standards, Global Reporting Initiative. We have SASB, Sustainability Accounting Standards Board. Then we have a TCFD, Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures. Then for the European Union, we have European Sustainability Reporting Standards. Then we have International Sustainability Standards Board, IFRS. And then we also have CDP, Carbon Disclosure Project. But then there is an imperative need to have India-specific sustainability standards which are aligned with our conditions, which are aligned with the context in which we operate in India. There is an imperative need to have India-specific, contextually relevant sustainability reporting standards. ICMAI is the first professional body in India to release the draft of 2 sustainability standards. Today I'm going to talk about one. The other one, possibly we can have yet another session. I would request SSB to organize a session on the other sustainability standard also that the Institute has developed. But we are the first professional body in India to develop draft of sustainability standards. And as I told you, we have developed drafts of 2 sustainability standards till now. The first one is Sustainability Standard on General Requirements for Disclosure of Sustainability Related Information, which I'm going to talk about today. And the second one is Sustainability Standard for Climate Related Disclosures, which we'll talk about some other time. So how did we go about drafting the 2 sustainability standards? The draft sustainability standards have been developed by ICMAI by referring to and perusal of all the other existing sustainability standards the world over. We have looked at IFRS, GRI, SEC, EU, TCFD, and of course including our own Indian version, that is BRSR frameworks. And the approach that we have followed for developing these 2 draft sustainability standards is the carve-out approach. The draft sustainability standards have been developed, very important, by incorporating cost and management accounting dimensions. That's where you get the Indian flavor, the flavor of Indian context, and the focus of ICMAI on the cost and management accounting dimensions. The draft sustainability standards have been developed as per the structure and template of cost accounting standards. You have 24, 25 cost accounting standards, which all of us have read through, and it follows a particular structure and template. There are 8 headings in each CAS. We have followed the same template and structure as that followed in CAS with a view to developing the sustainability standard drafts. The draft sustainability standards are sector agnostic. As of now, these are generic and general in nature. Going forward, possibly the Institute can come out with or may come out with industry-specific guidance notes or application guidance. But as of now, in the present form, the sustainability standard is sector agnostic, is equally applicable, equally relevant, equally valid for all sectors of the economy. The drafts are focused on stakeholders. Normally, when you check out the language of IFRS, it talks about the focus being on shareholders. The focus is of financial capital. But here in sustainability standards, the focus is on stakeholders. Yes, it does include the shareholders also, but it's not restricted to only shareholders, but it talks about and looks at the various other stakeholders, and the standards have been developed keeping in view the stakeholder perspective rather than the shareholders perspective. So let's now come down to the structure and the content of the sustainability standard. It runs into, I think, about 24, 25 pages. Not possible to summarize or provide the whole content in a presentation like this. You have to read that line by line, word by word. But in order to give you a general flavor and general understanding of the structure and the content that we have included in sustainability standards, we now start with the first section or the first part of the sustainability standard, which is the introduction part. This standard that we are talking about deals with general requirements for disclosure of sustainability related information which an entity is required to disclose. Disclose what? Disclose information about sustainability related risks and their impact. If that risk gets translated into a particular event, what is likely to be probabilistic impact and how the company is prepared to deal with that, either in terms of mitigation or in terms of adaptation or some other strategy that the company may decide to follow. But whenever there is a risk in anything, there is always the other side of opportunity. Sustainability is not only about risk, it's also equally about a lot of opportunities. How the companies looks at those emerging opportunities to enhance the value for the stakeholders, that is the second dimension or the second aspect of the sustainability standard. And what is the time frame? We are looking at sustainability related information of the entity relating to sustainability related risks and impact, sustainability related opportunities in the short, medium, and long term. We're looking at 3 time horizons. Short term, maybe less than 1 year. Medium term, maybe 1 to 3 years, 1 to 5 years. And long term, more than 5 years. We're looking at various time horizons with a view to providing information to stakeholders what the company is doing with regard to sustainability risks and opportunities over short term, medium term, and long term time perspective. What is the objective of this standard? The objective of this sustainability standard is to bring about uniformity and consistency in disclosing information about an entity's sustainability related risks and their impact, as well as sustainability related information opportunities. We're looking at uniformity and consistency. The company must consistently report its sustainability actions, and the company must also uniformly follow certain approaches, certain tools and techniques with a view to providing and sharing this information with the various stakeholders. What is the scope of this standard? The entity shall apply this standard in preparing and reporting sustainability related disclosures in BRSR. It is aligned and linked with BRSR. It is inclined and aligned in such a way that use of this sustainability standard is going to facilitate the companies in coming out with reliable, transparent, principle-based disclosures in their business responsibility and sustainability reports. A small rider or a caveat here. This particular standard shall not apply to the preparation and reporting of climate-related disclosures. That's because we have come out with a separate sustainability standard on climate-related disclosures. As I told you, we have prepared two sustainability standards. The second one, the other one, which we will talk about some other day, is on climate-related disclosures. The one which we are talking about and discussing today is general requirements for sustainability-related disclosure, where this standard can be applied, adopted, and followed. So you would have noticed in CAS also, we have principles of identification of costs and measurement. We have kept the same template and same structure as that followed in the case of CAS. And here we talk about principles of identification and measurement in the context of sustainability reporting. First principle, fair presentation. The information which is disclosed must be relevant, and the information must be truly representative based on complete and accurate depiction, and the information should be unbiased. That's the principle of fair presentation. Accuracy. Of course, you can have some kind of estimates for reporting with regard to sustainability information, but wherever possible, wherever you're using a data which is factual, you must ensure its accuracy. Accuracy means that the information is factual and is free from material error, and that all information is specific, precise, and to the point. And we look at the principle of verifiability. The trust and the confidence of the users of sustainability reporting will be increased when they find that the information which is provided in the sustainability report can be verified, corroborated from some other supporting document. Materiality is a very important concept in the aspect of sustainability reporting. What you report and what you don't report is going to be dependent upon what do you consider to be a material information. There can be no specific threshold. There can be no specific definition, example of what is material information, what is not. It's going to vary from country to country, sector to sector, even within a particular sector, company to company. But the basic principle is if omission or misstatement of that information could lead to decision making, wrong decision making on the part of the stakeholders, then such a particular information must be considered as material and duly reported in the sustainability report. Consistency is very important. You must consistently follow the principles that you decide to adopt to prepare your sustainability report. You must consistently follow the same principles year on year. Assessing the circumstances. Now, when you sit down to write sustainability report of a particular company, and each company operates in a different business environment, has different internal and external environment which impacts it, and therefore you have to assess the circumstances, understand the environment in which the company is functioning, and then you start with looking at exposure of the entity to sustainability related risks and opportunities, and also check out, do you have people working for the company with skills, capabilities, and resources required for dealing with sustainability risks and opportunities. Mind you, these are new concepts. Not many people in the marketplace have those kind of skills as of now. Yes, that's a challenge, but then it will get beefed up going forward, I'm sure. But then you have to assess, do you have the right kind of people with right kind of skilling and competency to be able to deal with sustainability risks and opportunities? That's what you have to check when you do the circumstances assessment of a particular company. Then you assess exposure and impacts. What is the exposure that a particular company has with regard to environmental risks? And for that, you have to understand the context and circumstances of the entity. Then you identify actual and potential risks and their likely impacts. Then you assess the significance of the risks and their impact. And then you prioritize the most significant risks and their impacts for sustainability reporting. Now, introducing here the dimensions of cost and management accounting. Value to cost balancing is very important. Value measurement should be commensurate and concurrent to the incurrence of cost and its traceability in the context of sustainability. In order to create value, in order to create any product or service, you have to perform various activities, and each activity is going to consume various resources, and all these resources are going to have some kind of a cost associated with them. So very important basic principle that we follow, and we all understand very, very clearly, we all CMAs, value measurement should be commensurate and concurrent to the incurrence of cost, and especially with regard to traceability in the context of sustainability. Then we have to look at strategic cost analysis in value chain, which involves identification of primary and support activities that adds value, and then analyze these activities to optimize the cost. Because in such a case, we look at what are the different activities that the company performs, carry out, and build up connecting the dots of various activities, link them up with resource consumption, ultimately create cost centers, cost pools, and identify the cost drivers, and thus build up a clear linkage and a clear architecture of how the different activities are performed and how the costs associated with each activity are actually getting activated in that particular aspect. Then we have the resource consumption model. We CMAs know that we need to minimize the resource usage and wastage, and we must continuously look for and identify areas for improvement. We must enhance environmental, social, and commercial viability of an entity. That's what sustainability is all about. Instead of only looking at economic or commercial viability in terms of profit or profitability, we should also focus on social and environmental dimension of a business. We know what we have to identify and measure. Now coming down to the point of what is going to be the process of identification and measurement that you're going to follow for building up your sustainability report. First of all, you have to check out the entity and its environment. Remember CAAS, Cost Audit and Accounting, Cost Audit and Assurance Standard, which talks about the separate CAS, CAAS, on understanding the entity and its environment. That's where we apply the same principle here. You have to describe and understand the nature of the entity. Is it a private limited company, a sole proprietorship, a partnership firm, a public limited company, a company only operating within India, a company multinational in nature? Where are the company's operations located? How is the company carrying out its various operations? What are the major business process inputs? Are there any joint and byproducts? What is nature of wastage happening in the business? Everything has to be properly understood. Then coming down to relevant industry, which industry you operate in, what are the regulatory policies, what are the regulatory impacts of operating in that particular sector or that particular industry, and what are the other external factors which are applicable on the sustainability reporting framework that the company is trying to come out with. Then third important point to assess is the entity's internal control mechanism. How the company is managing its affairs in terms of laying down and making sure that all those internal controls are in place, operating and operating effectively. And of course, you also have to get a good sense of how the company's IT architecture is built up in terms of systems, platforms, programs which are in use in the company. That's also a part of understanding the entirety and its environment. Coming down to the governance dimension, you have to describe the governance bodies which are responsible for overview of sustainability reporting risks, and you then describe how their responsibilities are reflected. There may be some directors who are specifically made responsible for looking at some of the other aspects of the governance of the company. You must also check out and look at what is the process that identifying whether the appropriate and competencies in the company or not, and then you how the controls and procedures are to the management of related and time I will pause. Let's take a break of 2-3 minutes time and then we can come back and continue. Let's have a 2-3 minutes break at this point. Thank you. So let's continue, please. So we discussed about the governance aspect. In the governance aspect, we also got to explain the process by which the board of directors or the committee of directors take into account and consider sustainability related risks in their strategy. When the strategy is being set up, when the strategy is being reviewed, how do you consider and take into account sustainability related risks? That is also one of the key aspects of the governance process that's required to be checked out. You must also understand the risk management policies followed by the company. Do they have a risk directory? Do they have a complete listing of the various kinds of risks that the business is exposed to? And also, do they consider how they're going to manage, mitigate, adapt to the different kind of risks that the business is exposed to? You also check out the annual budgets and the objectives of the organization. You also look at monitoring reports with regard to performance and progress of the company against its various goals and targets. And you also look at the CapEx proposals of the company. What are the proposals that the company has with regard to capital expenditure, mergers and acquisition? That's also an important aspect to be looked into. Then you must also describe the process that the company follows for consultation between the stakeholders on sustainability related risks. That's very, very important. You may have a well laid out sustainability plan, but unless you engage in continuous dialogue with various stakeholders, you will not know or get any kind of feedback on the plans that you have, on the structure that you have. At the same time, the stakeholders would also not get a full 360-degree view as to what is happening inside the company. Therefore, it is very, very vital and critical that there must be a continuous process of consultation between the stakeholders on sustainability related risks. When it comes to strategy, you have to describe the strategy of the company, how the company proposes to manage its sustainability related risks. You also have to look at the current effects of sustainability related risks as well as the anticipated effects and effects on the company's business model and its value chain. Not only business model, not only the business entities model, but also all associated partners in the business process. That's the entire elements and entities involved in the value chain. The BRSR reporting also talks about not only sustainability reporting is not only limited to providing sustainability related information, providing to your company, but also across the value chain, both forward-looking as well as backward-looking linkages that the company may have. You must also look at adaptation strategies followed by the company, the mitigation with regard to sustainability-related transition plan, the resilience of the entity strategy and its business model to sustainability-related changes. Resilience is very important. During COVID, many businesses were impacted by COVID pandemic situation. Of course, some of the businesses also had new advantages and they were able to get positive impact of the COVID, but majority of the businesses were negatively impacted. Now, after about 3.5 years of COVID-19 pandemic, most of the businesses across the world have recovered. But if you look at how they have recovered, you will notice that some of the businesses recovered faster than the others. Those businesses which recovered faster had resilient business model. They were able to change, adapt to the new circumstances very, very fast because their business model was adaptive, resilient, and agile. That's the strategy of the company must be resilient enough in order to be able to deal with the risk arising out of sustainability related dimensions of the business. Then you check out the risk management architecture of the company. What is the process that the company follows? What are the policies the company uses to identify, assess, prioritize, and monitor sustainability related risks? Then, how the company assesses nature, likelihood, magnitude, effects, impacts of sustainability related risks. How the company monitors on a continuous basis sustainability related risk as compared to other kinds and types of risks. And most importantly, how sustainability related risks are integrated into the company's overall risk management architecture and process. This is the crux. This is ultimately what has to happen. You identify various kinds of risks. So now what we are proposing is you must also start looking at sustainability related risks also. And then you must integrate sustainability related risks in the overall risk architecture, risk management structure and process of the company so that these are not left out, but these are duly considered in all decisions that the company makes as part of its operations. Metrics and targets, very, very important aspect of sustainability reporting. You can't manage anything unless you are able to measure that. And how do you measure and how do you track performance of any activity, any company? That's by having some kind of metrics, some kind of targets. Then only you can find out this is what was proposed to be achieved. This is the actual result. This is the gap that we have. So metrics and targets are very, very important in sustainability reporting, which includes a description of targets that the companies set for themselves in terms of sustainability activities, whether the targets that the company has set have been validated by a third party. If yes, that will carry more credibility. People will have more trust in that target if it had been validated, assured by a third party. Whether the target is absolute or intensity based. What are the time frames over which the target applies? You say that you want to cut down your CO2 emission by 10%. Well, it cannot happen overnight. It cannot happen even 1 year. You may say our overall target is to cut down CO2 emission by 10% over the next 3 years. In the first year, possibly, we'll do 4%. Second year, we'll do 3%. And third year, we'll do 3%. That's how a 10% CO2 emission reduction is going to be met by the company over a time period of 3 years. What is also important is to identify the base year from which the progress is measured. All the company's results, financial results, performance results showed very, very good performance in the year 22-23 as compared to 21-22. That's because 2021 and 21-22 were COVID years. The business was at its lowest level. And that become a base for the next year when you start comparing your performance in 22-23 or 23-24. Because of that low base, the companies reflected huge improvements in their performance. But that's not the right way to look at it. You must be very, very careful. What is the base that you have chosen with a view to monitoring your progress over a period of time? And what are the KPIs key performance indicators that you are going to use to measure progress against the targets that you have set for sustainability activities of your company. And description of methodologies used to calculate targets and measures. How did you arrive at the particular target that you have set for your company? You may have taken it from some report. You may have taken it from some other sustainability standards. I mean, there are 7, 8 different types of sustainability standards in operation the world over. You may have taken some idea from there. You may have taken a target from there. That's good enough. But what is the methodology that you have used to identify your target, calculate the target, and measure the performance against the target? The sustainability report that you prepare must also provide the methodology description so that people know, stakeholders know as to what is what, how the target was set, how the performance was measured, and what is the result. As you will notice, as in the case of gas, now coming down to the heading of presentation in sustainability standard. There are 9 principles mentioned in business responsibility and sustainability reporting, and there are about 170 parameters which are required to be reported upon under 9 categories. We are going to talk and discuss and take into account all the 9 principles here, except principle number 6. That's because principle number 6 deals with climate-related disclosures, for which our institute has come out with a separate sustainability standard. So this particular standard applies to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9 principles. Each principle has a particular structure. Section A is all about general information to be provided about the company, its name, location, operations, registered office, things like that. Section B is all about management and the process that the company follows, disclosures of management structure and the processes. And within section B, you talk about specific commitments, goals, and targets that the company may have set for itself, or the management of the company may have decided to set for itself with defined timelines. Within what time frame do you expect to meet this particular target or achieve this particular KPI? And also performance of the entity against the specific commitments, goals, targets, along with reasons if the performance has fallen short of expectation, or if the KPI of the target has not been met. The reasons, therefore, are also required to be provided in the sustainability reporting done by the company. That's from the presentation part of it. Disclosures. Disclosures shall be made only where material, significant, and quantifiable. What is to be disclosed? What is not to be disclosed? Who decides? Entity decides. But of course, this standard is going to help you come to a decision, come to a conclusion as to what is material, what is significant, and therefore must be reported. But the reported information also is likely to be quantifiable to the extent possible. That's where the first principle of disclosure applies. Disclosure shall be made where material, significant, and quantifiable. Disclosure should be presented using consistent formats, language, and metrics from period to period, so that your report of one particular period becomes comparable, remains comparable with subsequent periods of time. Therefore, it must follow consistent formats, consistent language, and consistent metrics from time to time. For quantitative information that may be provided in the sustainability report, the disclosure should include an explanation of the definition and the scope applied. If you are providing some future-oriented data or future-oriented information, the key assumptions that you may use should be clearly clarified and explained to the users of sustainability report. You must try and maintain an appropriate balance between qualitative and quantitative information in your sustainability report. All the disclosures that you make in sustainability report should be defined, collected, recorded, analyzed in such a way that information is verifiable to ensure its high quality. Anything which can be verified, authenticated, corroborated by referring to some other report, some other document, or if it has been assured by a third-party service provider, it is considered to be more trustworthy, and the quality of the information provided in sustainability report is considered to be of high quality if the information is verifiable. So while providing information in the sustainability report, you must carefully follow these principles of disclosure, which are vital part of the sustainability standard released by the Institute of Cost Accountants of India. So to summarize, sustainability is not only about ticking boxes. You have 9 principles, you have 170 parameters to be reported on. Top 1,000 companies by market cap are required to provide BRSR report to stock exchanges every year. But mind you, it's not a tick box exercise. Sustainability is not about a tick box exercise. Sustainability is also not a merely recently developed buzzword. It's a long-term measurable actions that truly enhance sustainability, because you can manage only what you can measure and monitor. Sustainability reporting standard that the Institute has released, it facilitates uniformity and consistency in disclosing information about an entity's sustainability related risks and opportunities and action plans, and it helps the stakeholders to monitor the progress achieved by the company with regard to sustainability related risks and opportunities. It's a new dimension, new area of interest and practice for CMAs. There are going to be a lot of professional opportunities going forward in this particular domain of sustainability reporting. The Institute has come out with these 2 draft sustainability standards, and we are also going to follow it up with application guidance for both of these 2 standards. And going forward, we will also come out with and release sector-specific, industry-specific sustainability reporting guidance and standards. There are huge professional opportunities and venues emanating in a marketplace arising out of sustainability reporting. Sustainability reporting not only means to survive, it's not only important for survival of a company, but actually it is a strategy to prosper in today's world. If you want to grow, if you want to be fancied by the stakeholders, if you want to create value for the stakeholders, one short solution is you must start following sustainability principles, sustainability practices. Move to sustainable products. And whatever you're doing internally, please communicate that to the stakeholders by and through a well-structured, principle-based sustainability reporting. And this standard is going to help you come out with and prepare a principle-based sustainability report for the benefit of the stakeholders. Thank you very much. That's where I close my formal presentation, but I'll be pleased to answer a few questions or to interact with you if some of you have some views. That's all from my side. It's open to all of you to kindly share your views, if any, on the topic of discussion today. Thank you so much.
Sir, there are many questions, sir. If you can
Sure, sir.
see
Sure.
the question answer Q&A portion. I think a lot of
Okay.
pertinent questions have come.
Sure. Question and answers. Okay. I'm just checking. So the first, I would not say question, but the first view of one of the participants is an organization's motive should be profitability with integrity, but the real situation is different. So how an organization can ensure a proper trade-off between economic value and social value to achieve ESG framework? The difference in the mindset of the people lies in terms of difference between short term and long term. The companies focusing on profitability, they are focusing on short term results. But companies which are focusing on the other two dimensions also, the social and environmental perspective or the entire ESG framework, that's a long term value creation strategy that the companies follow. So of course, profitability is going to be important. I'm saying you can't live without profit or profitability, but the path to profit now is going to pass through the social and environmental dimensions. It's not only profit that you got to care about, it's all about people, profit, planet. Triple bottom line is what you have to take care of with a view to actually creating long-term value for the stakeholders of the company. The next view here is that the scope of sustainability reporting and integrating reporting differ more or less the same, but integrated reporting is all about creating an architecture of strategy, action plan, and governance in the social, environmental, and economic framework. But sustainability goes a little farther than that, and it includes all the different types of capital and the dimensions of making this planet a better place to live in, improving the quality of life of the people by focusing on the social, the governance, and the environmental aspects for that matter. How ESG value is calculated for a company operating in global environment? Well, there are ESG rating companies in the marketplace now. Just as we have ICRA, CRISIL, CARE to do rating of companies. For the purpose of carrying out and doing ESG rating, SEBI has recently recognized and provided license to 3 organizations. They have their own checklist, they have their own parameters and processes, and by looking at those particular documents and information, they're able to make an estimate. Of course, every rating is an estimate. It's not a precise value or number, but it does indicate, comparatively speaking, which company is better as compared to the other company so far as the ESG value is concerned. But when you talk about and look at ESG value in the context of global environment, that becomes a bit more challenging because a company operating in Europe may be directly dictated, governed by European Union standards. Indian standards may be slightly different in terms of thresholds, materiality, principles, limits, and all that. That's where you will have to do a bit of a trade-off by reporting possibly separately the ESG rating and standard of a company or a unit of the company operating in other jurisdiction and the company's unit operating or the parent office operating within India. There can be slight differences between the two depending upon what particular standards you would apply and use for that purpose. Whether sustainability standards are rule-based or principle-based or hybrid. But principally, basically all standards are principle-based. When you say a standard, normally we associate standards with principles. These are principle-based. How do you apply these principles? You can have various rules, you can have a guidance note, you can have an application guidance, but primarily, basically, sustainability standards are principle-based. Once the sustainability standards are issued, S1, S2, who is going to adopt? I mean, Is it voluntary or any law to adopt? Well, in order to improve the quality of disclosures that the companies make in their BRSR report or sustainability report, sustainability standards are going to play a very, very critical and important role. Once it becomes mandatory from the SEBI's perspective or from the stock exchange's perspective, the institute is making its efforts to make these agencies agree to our recommendation of making these standards mandatory for application for reporting under BRSR, but practically speaking, that may take some time. But definitely once these standards are released by the institute, these will become mandatory for application by our own members at least. Anytime you do any kind of a sustainability audit, any kind of sustainability reporting assignment, all CMA members will be mandatorily required to follow these standards going forward. Does the equation on sustainability I is equal to PAT correctly represent the scope of reporting requirements? In a way, yes. Profit is still there as an element to be considered, a very significant critical element to be considered by any business. We are only adding two more dimensions, the social dimension and the environmental dimension, and saying that how do you earn that profit? How do you earn a given ROI from a business? It has to pass through the pathway of social and environmental consideration. There are any global level sustainability maturity models so that we can Indianize those standards. We have looked at IFRS S1 and IFRS S2, primarily from where we have done the carve-outs in order to prepare our own draft standards by the institute. But along with that, we have also looked at TCFD, we have looked at SEC, we have looked at SASB, we have looked at ISSB, we have looked at GRI, we have looked at all the available material on sustainability reporting standards prevalent in the marketplace today. And from there, we have tried to call out India-specific contextually relevant standards for India. For the supporting reporting part, how can an entity manage insufficiency in data collection on the one side and data overload on the other side? It's all going to be a matter of judgment. What is to be included? What is not to be included? Both are equally important. The basic principles provided for by this particular standard, and as in the case of IFRS S1 and S2 also, they focus on the aspect of materiality. Materiality not only from a financial threshold point of view, but also from all activities, all information, whether quantitative or qualitative, which can possibly lead to wrong decision on the part of the stakeholders, is considered to be material. So you must include all that is material from the perspective of stakeholders in your sustainability report. That's the data sufficiency part of it, but at the same time, try to also avoid data overload. I mean, one of the key difference between integrated reporting and sustainability reporting is, if you look at the definition of integrated reporting, it talks about a report which is concise and clear in communicating organizational strategy, governance in the context of social, economic, and environmental dimension. You'll find the word concise there, but there's no such word being used in the context of sustainability reporting. But nonetheless, we all understand if the report is within manageable content, within manageable number of pages, and is not fraught with data overload, is going to be more useful from the stakeholder's perspective, that's for sure. Is there any sustainability audit framework for the purpose of internal and external reporting? I mean, the same principles that we have included in sustainability standard that we are discussing, you can use the same pointers You can use the same dotted points that we have discussed under each one of the headed to convert this into kind of an audit checklist. If you happen to do an assignment on sustainability audit or sustainability reporting audit, you can convert the bullet points of this particular standard into kind of a checklist. And when you tick all those checklist elements, end of the day, you will come out with a sustainability audit report. It can be very easily converted into an audit checklist. If the purpose of SS1 is to govern ESG disclosures for all organizations, the scope does not reflect it. Actually, there is a lot of debate going on in the marketplace today. Some people are saying ESG is dead. Companies can follow ESG strategies, but still may not be sustainable. Because sustainability is much broader in perspective. It talks about creating long-term value for the stakeholders. ESG is just a path or a tool within the sustainability domain. So for the purpose of SS1 is not exactly to govern ESG disclosure. The purpose of sustainability SS1 standard is to regulate and guide the users in preparing a sustainability report, which to my mind is slightly different from an ESG report. In India, where even accounting and financial reporting in a particular manner is followed only because the laws mandated, how do we propose to make ISS 1 and 2 widely accepted and applied? You are very right, madam. Our first step, which is within our power prerogative of the Council of the Institute, we are going to make it mandatory for use by our own CMA members in any such assignment that they may handle. But side by side, as I told you, we are also touching base in connect with SEBI stock exchanges, and we'll try to push our case for making it mandatory for wider use within the country. That's our effort, and we have already started making efforts in that particular direction. Most MNCs would already be following EU, CSDR, EPA, GRI. How do we ensure and explain compatibility or comparability of these with SS1 and SS2? So far as BRSR reporting is concerned, that's what we are aiming at. Objective is to make SS1, SS2 and the gold standards for preparation of reports under BRSR. But if the company is an MNC, it has operations in other geographies also, where some other sustainability standards may be prevalent, may be followed. The company would definitely have to apply and follow those standards in that jurisdiction. But our objective and the vision that we have is to at least try to get it mandated for application in India, especially for the purposes of BRSR reporting. Can you explain the concept of sustainability, benchmarking, and bench trending? Well, everybody is talking about sustainability. Every company is talking about sustainability in all jurisdictions the world over, but everyone is right now at different level in the journey towards sustainability. Some companies are slightly more mature as compared to others. Some have just started their journey. Some companies are even yet to take some tiny steps or baby steps. Benchmarking is where you try to at least compare yourself with your peers, companies operating within the same sector, within the same industry, so that you are not lagging behind them. You are able to catch up with them in terms of competitive advantage. And for that matter, you must continuously benchmark yourself with the sustainability practices followed by your peers and competitors. And bench trending is where you actually start catching up with your peers and other competitors. Also say we are also there in the race. We are also following the footprints of, okay, the leader companies in a particular sector or particular industry, but we are also not much behind the others in this particular journey of sustainability. Besides reporting on 9 principles, companies required to report on IFRS S1, S2 that has come from TCFD and adopted, where SEBI stands on this. So far as the banking and the financial sector is concerned, the BFSI sector, RBI guidelines say they are okay with TCFD guidelines. I mean, that's what RBI says as of now. Till the time we have India-specific and contextually relevant sustainability standards developed within India and adopted, accepted by the regulatory authorities and bodies, RBI has made it very clear TCFD is acceptable, especially in the BFSI sector. Since these are carved out standards that are going to be mandatory for CMAs, is there a likelihood that this will be an additional compliance assurance for the cost audit mechanism? Actually, I mean, there are two things involved here. One is that cost audit framework is a separate framework. Sustainability reporting framework, or BSR reporting framework, is a separate framework. In a way, we can possibly look at going forward, including some elements of BRSR within our cost reporting framework also. Just as we used to have a performance report earlier. Similarly, we can possibly look at enhancing the structure and scope of cost audit report also in terms of adding some elements of BRSR. But as of now, it doesn't really have any kind of linkage with the cost audit. These standards are going to be applicable only for the reporting purposes for the sustainability reporting, more specifically the BRSR reporting as prevalent mandated in India as of today. So I think I have dealt with and responded to all the comments which were mentioned in the Q&A section. Any further comments, any further views, I'll be pleased to respond to that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. I think it was an elaborate presentation, and I wholeheartedly
thank you very much,
our
sir. Thank you.
CMA Dr. S.K. Gupta, sir, who is instrumental in a lot of SSB activities, not only standards, our new standards, water standards are coming, which sir has taken the pioneering steps, and also the guidance note, which would be light of the day in very soon. And I also thank our chairman, CMA Dr. Ashish Thakte, sir, who has conceived this idea of having those sessions on SS1 and SS2.
Yes,
I think SS2 would be very soon. Sir would be taking
yes,
based on his
let's
availability.
plan that out. Let's plan that out early. Yeah, sure.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
That
Thank
would
you,
be
sir.
of very nice, sir. And I thank our SSB board members who has always helped us to develop our standards and other activities of the SSB board. I thank our president, vice president, and other council members for always supporting us for our various activities. We thank our IT department, CPT department, and other departments for enabling today's webinar. And with this, we close today's session. We thank all for participation. Thank you, sir.